I should have known something was wrong when Marcus didn't look at me during the rehearsal, but I told myself it was nerves. Cold feet. The normal anxiety that comes before pledging your life to someone forever. I smoothed down my wedding dress for the 100th time, staring at my reflection in the bridal suite mirror, and convinced myself that everything would be perfect. The ivory lace hugged my body like a second skin, delicate and expensive, chosen by Marcus's mother, of course. My dark hair was pinned up in an elegant twist, small white flowers tucked into the curls. I looked like a bride from a magazine. Picture perfect, empty. 5 minutes. Serena, my sister Lily called through the door, her voice bright with excitement. I took a breath, pressed my hand against my stomach to calm the strange flutter of anxiety there, and told myself this was just wedding jitters. Marcus loved me. We'd been together for 3 years. He'd proposed on a beach in Santorini, gone down on one knee in front of 100 strangers, promised me forever. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The church was packed. I could hear the low murmur of voices, the rustle of programs, the distant notes of the string quartet warming up. 200 guests. Marcus's family had insisted on a spectacle. His father was a prominent real estate developer, and appearances mattered. I stepped into the corridor, bouquet trembling slightly in my hands. That's when I saw Father Benedict rushing toward me, his face pale, his normally calm expression fractured with something that looked like panic. "Serena," he said quietly, reaching for my arm. "We need to talk." "What's wrong?" My heart lurched. "Is Marcus okay?" The priest's eyes held nothing but pity. "He's gone, dear. He left a note." The world tilted. "What do you mean gone?" Father Benedict pressed a folded piece of paper into my hand. My fingers went numb as I opened it, Marcus's familiar scrawl blurring before my eyes. "Serena, I can't do this. I'm sorry. I thought I could, but I can't marry you. By the time you read this, I'll be on a plane. Don't try to find me, that was it." 4 sentences. 3 years reduced to 73 words. The bouquet slipped from my hand, white roses scattering across the marble floor like broken promises. "I don't understand," I whispered. "He was here yesterday. We talked about the honeymoon. I'm so sorry." Father Benedict murmured. "Do you want me to make an announcement?" 200 people waiting. Expecting a wedding. Expecting me to walk down that aisle and become Mrs. Marcus Whitfield. Humiliation crashed over me in waves so violent I thought I might drown. My chest tightened. My vision blurred. Somewhere in the distance, I heard my mother's voice calling my name, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the roaring in my ears. "He left me, at the altar. On our wedding day, Miss Serena." A different voice, low and controlled, cut through the chaos. I turned and the world shifted again. A man stood at the end of the corridor, backlit by the stained glass windows so that colored light fell across his shoulders like shattered rainbows. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than my wedding dress. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and controlled power. But it was his eyes that stopped my heart, gray cold, utterly unreadable, and fixed on me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. He moved toward me with the fluid grace of a predator, each step deliberate and quiet. When he stopped, he was close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive, cedar and smoke. "Dante Moretti," he said simply. The name meant nothing to me, but Father Benedict went rigid beside me and I heard my sister gasp somewhere behind us. "You need to leave," the priest said firmly. "This is a private." The groom abandoned her. Dante's voice was soft, almost gentle, but there was steel beneath the silk. His eyes never left mine. 200 guests are waiting in that church. Her family's reputation will be destroyed, unless... He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair back from my face. His fingers were warm, his touch surprisingly gentle. "Unless what?" I heard myself ask. A slight smile curved his lips, not cruel, but not quite kind either. Something dangerous and magnetic and utterly terrifying. "Unless someone steps forward to take his place." I stopped breathing. "You're insane," I whispered. "Perhaps." He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. "But I'm also the only solution to your problem, Serena. You don't even know me." "I know enough." His thumb traced the line of my jaw, sending an electric shock through my entire body. "I know you deserve better than a coward who runs. I know you're strong enough to walk into that church and face 200 people with your head held high. And I know," he leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear, "that if you say yes, you'll never be abandoned again." My heart was racing so fast I thought it might explode. This was insane. This man was a stranger. I didn't know him, didn't know anything about him except that his presence made the air feel charged and dangerous. "Why would you do this?" I asked, pulling back to meet his eyes. Something flickered in those gray depths, something dark and possessive that should have terrified me. "Because," Dante said quietly, "the moment I saw you in that dress, I decided you were mine." Before I could respond, before I could process the absolute insanity of what was happening, he took my hand and pressed something cold and heavy into my palm. A wedding ring. Simple platinum, elegant and timeless. "The choice is yours. Serena," he murmured. "Walk into that church alone and face the humiliation. Or walk in with me and let me give you the wedding you deserve." Behind us, I could hear the rising whispers, the confused murmurs of guests wondering why the ceremony hadn't started. My mother was crying. Lily was calling my name, and this stranger, this dangerous, magnetic stranger, was offering me salvation wrapped in mystery. I looked down at the ring in my hand, then back up at Dane Moretti's unreadable face. "If I say yes," I whispered, "what do you get out of this?" His smile widened, and for the first time, I saw something predatory flash behind his eyes. "You, Serena, I get you." The church bells began to toll, and I knew I had seconds to decide: run and live with the shame forever, or take the hand of a man whose very presence promised both salvation and destruction. I closed my fingers around the ring. "Okay," I breathed. Dante's eyes blazed with triumph as he lifted my hand to his lips. "Then let's get married, cara mia." And as he led me toward the church doors, I realized I'd just made a deal with a man who might be far more dangerous than the one who'd abandoned me. The moment we stepped through the church doors, every head turned. 200 faces. 200 pairs of eyes. All of them fixed on us, on me in my wedding dress, and on the stranger whose hand gripped mine with possessive certainty. The whispers started immediately, a ripple of shock that moved through the pews like wildfire. "Who is that? Where's Marcus? Oh my God, is that Dante Moretti?" My mother stood near the front, her face drained of color. Lily clutched her arm, eyes wide with something that looked like fear. But it was Marcus's mother who made a sound, a small, choked gasp that cut through the murmuring like a knife. Dante's fingers tightened around mine, and I felt his thumb brush across my knuckles in what might have been reassurance. Or possession. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. "Steady," he murmured, so quietly only I could hear. "Let them look, let them wonder. You are the only thing that matters right now." Father Benedict stood frozen at the altar, rosary clutched in his trembling hands. I saw him open his mouth to protest, but Dante's gaze shifted to him, just for a second, and whatever the priest saw in those cold gray eyes made him close it again. We walked down the aisle together. Not the way I'd imagined. Not with my father's arm linked through mine. Not with tears of joy streaming down my face. Instead, I moved through a dream, or a nightmare, with a stranger who somehow made the world feel both safer and infinitely more dangerous. The music had stopped. No one knew what to do. This wasn't in the program. When we reached the altar, Dante turned to face me, blocking out the rest of the church, the gawking guests, my mother's silent tears. In that moment, it was just us, him in his perfectly tailored suit, me in my borrowed wedding dress, standing on the edge of something irreversible. "He can still run," he said softly, his voice pitched for my ears alone. "I won't stop you?" "Yes, you will," I heard myself say. "Men like you don't let go of things you want." A flicker of amusement crossed his face. "Smart girl." Father Benedict cleared his throat, looking between us with an expression caught somewhere between horror and resignation. "Mr. Moretti, this is highly irregular." "Then make it regular, Father." Dante's voice carried authority that brooked no argument. "You have a bride. You have a groom. You have a license." He pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket, and my breath caught when I realized it was a marriage license. Blank except for my name already filled in. "All you need to do is your job." "Where did you get that?" I whispered. "I came prepared." His eyes never left mine. "I've been waiting for the right moment, Serena. Seems fate handed it to me today." My mind reeled. This wasn't spontaneous. This man had planned. "Dearly beloved." Father Benedict began weakly, his voice shaking. "We are gathered here today." The ceremony blurred. I heard the words without processing them, felt Danny's hands on mine without fully understanding what was happening. Someone in the back pews was crying. Marcus's mother had left, I realized distantly. Just stood up and walked out, her husband trailing behind her with murder in his eyes. "Do you, Serena May Castellano, take this man?" I should say no. I should run. This was insane, reckless, dangerous beyond measure. I didn't know this man, didn't know his intentions, his past, his reasons. But when I looked into Dante Moretti's eyes, I saw something that Marcus had never shown me. Certainty. Absolute, unwavering certainty. "I do," I whispered. His grip tightened on my hands, and I swore I saw his breath catch. "And do you, Dante Alessandro Moretti, take this woman?" "I do." No hesitation. His voice rang through the church like a vow sworn in steel. Father Benedict's hands shook as he blessed the rings. Dante slipped the platinum band onto my finger. A perfect fit, I realized with a shiver, and then waited while I took the matching ring from the priest's trembling palm. When I slid it onto Danny's finger, his eyes darkened with something that made heat pool low in my stomach. "By the power vested in me," Father Benedict said quickly, desperately, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." "You may." Dante didn't wait for permission. He pulled me against him with one hand at the small of my back, the other cupping my face with surprising gentleness. For a heartbeat, we simply stood there, and I saw something vulnerable flash across his features. Then he kissed me. Not gentle, not chaste, not appropriate for a church filled with witnesses. His mouth claimed mine with a hunger that stole my breath, his fingers threading into my carefully pinned hair and scattering flowers across the marble floor. I gasped against his lips, and he deepened the kiss, tasting me like he'd been starving for this moment. The church erupted in scandalized murmurs, but I couldn't hear them over the roaring in my ears. Couldn't think past the way his body felt pressed against mine, solid and warm and utterly overwhelming. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were molten silver. Mine, he breathed against my lips. You're mine now, Serena, and God help me. In that moment, I believed him. We turned to face the congregation. My family, Marcus's business associates, friends who'd come expecting one wedding and gotten something else entirely. I saw shock, confusion, fear, but Dante stood beside me like a king serving his kingdom, radiating power and control, and suddenly I understood why people were afraid. This wasn't just a man. This was someone who commanded empires. A sleek black car was waiting outside. I hadn't noticed it before. But now I saw the driver, the tinted windows, the subtle way other vehicles gave it space. Dante guided me toward it with a hand at my back, and I felt the weight of 200 stairs boring into us. Where are we going? I asked as he opened the door. He smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible all at once. Home, Mrs. Moretti. We're going home. I slid into the car, the leather cool against my skin, and watched through the window as my old life, my mother, my sister, the church, everything familiar, grew smaller and smaller. Dante settled beside me, close enough that his thigh pressed against mine, and lifted my hand to his lips. No regrets. He asked quietly. I should have said yes. Should have demanded he take me back, and all this insanity. Let me go. Instead, I looked at the ring on my finger, the symbol of a promise I'd made to a stranger, and felt something wild and reckless unfurl in my chest. Ask me again tomorrow, I whispered. His laugh was low and dark and sent shivers down my spine. Tomorrow, he murmured. You'll be far too busy to think about regrets. The car pulled away from the church, and I realized I'd just married a man I didn't know, and I had no idea if I'd been saved or doomed. The mansion appeared through the trees like something from a dream, or a warning. 3 stories of stone and glass, perched on a hilltop overlooking the city, surrounded by manicured gardens and iron gates that looked more like prison bars than decoration. Security cameras tracked our approach. Men in dark suits stood at attention near the entrance, their faces impassive but their eyes sharp. This wasn't a home, this was a fortress. What exactly do you do, Dante? I asked as the car rolled to a stop in front of marble steps that probably cost more than my childhood house. He glanced at me, something amused flickering in his eyes. Import and export, family business. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need tonight. He stepped out of the car and offered his hand. Come, Kara. Let me show you your new home. The interior was even more intimidating than the exterior. Vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, artwork that belonged in museums. Everything was elegant, expensive, and completely impersonal, like a showroom rather than a place where someone actually lived. A woman appeared from a side corridor, older, dressed in a simple black dress, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her eyes swept over me with clinical assessment. Mrs. Costa will show you to your room, Dante said, already turning away. You'll find everything you need there. Wait, I caught his arm and he went still beneath my touch. My room. Not our room. He looked down at where my hand rested on his sleeve, then back up at my face. For a moment something heated flashed in his eyes, but he banked it quickly. You've had a difficult day, Serena. I thought you might appreciate privacy. His voice was carefully controlled. Unless you'd prefer otherwise. The question hung between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to face. No, I said quickly, dropping my hand. Privacy is good. Something that might have been disappointment crossed his features, but it vanished so quickly I couldn't be sure. Then I'll see you at dinner. 8 o'clock. Mrs. Costa will bring you something appropriate to wear. He walked away before I could respond, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor, leaving me standing in the vast entryway with only the housekeeper for company. This way, Mrs. Moretti, the woman said, her accent faintly Italian, her tone brooking no argument. My room was beautiful. Enormous windows overlooking the gardens, a 4-poster bed draped in silk, an attached bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. But like the rest of the house, it felt empty. Stage. A knock on the door made me turn. Mrs. Costa entered carrying a garment bag and a small box. Mr. Moretti selected these for you, she said, laying them on the bed. Dinner is in 2 hours. I suggest you rest. Wet. I called as she turned to leave. How long have you worked for him? She paused, considering. 20 years. Since he was a boy. Then you know him well. As well as anyone can know Mr. Moretti. Her expression softened slightly. He is not what people think, Mrs. Moretti. But he is also exactly what people fear. Remember that. Then she was gone, leaving me with a warning I didn't fully understand. I opened the garment bag slowly, almost afraid of what I'd find. The dress was stunning, midnight blue silk that shimmered like water, elegant but not overly formal. The box contained diamond earrings that probably cost more than my car. He'd known my size perfectly, had known what would suit me. How long had Dante Moretti been watching me before today? The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it sent a strange thrill down my spine. At exactly 8 o'clock, I descended the grand staircase in the blue dress, my hair loose around my shoulders, the diamonds catching the light from the chandelier above. Dante waited in the dining room. He'd changed into a different suit, still black, still perfectly tailored, but more relaxed somehow. His jacket was draped over a chair, his sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars I hadn't noticed before. When he saw me, he went absolutely still. "You're beautiful," he said quietly. Not a compliment. A statement of fact. "The dress helps," I replied, suddenly nervous under the intensity of his gaze. "The dress is just silk and thread." He moved toward me, slow and deliberate. "You, Serena, are something else entirely." The dining table could have seated 20, but only 2 places had been set, at the head and immediately to the right. Intimate despite the size of the room, Dante pulled out my chair himself, his hand brushing my bare shoulder as I sat. That simple touch sent electricity racing across my skin. Dinner was served by silent staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Expensive wine. Food I barely tasted because I was too aware of the man sitting close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Tell me about yourself," he said, cutting into his steak with precise movements. "The real you, not the version I saw in the church. You first." I sipped my wine, needing the courage. "Who are you really, Dante Moretti?" He smiled, and it was sharp enough to cut. "I'm the man who owns half this city, who makes decisions that change lives, who people fear and with good reason. Your Mafia." It wasn't a question, he didn't deny it. "My family has been in this business for 4 generations. I took over when I was 23 after my father was killed. Since then, I've built empire of what? Power, control, loyalty." He set down his fork, giving me his full attention. "I protect what's mine, Serena. Absolutely. Ruthlessly, without exception. And I'm yours now." The question came out shakier than I intended. "Yes." No hesitation. No apology. "From the moment you put that ring on your finger, I should have been terrified. Should have been plotting escape. Instead, I leaned forward, holding his gaze. What if I don't want to be owned?" Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Then you'll learn, cara mia, that some things are worth surrendering to." The air between us crackled with tension so thick I could barely breathe. A phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Dante glanced at it, and his expression hardened into something cold and lethal. "I need to handle this," he said, standing abruptly. "Don't wait up." "Dante?" But he was already gone, leaving me alone in a dining room that suddenly felt twice as large and infinitely more empty. I sat there for a long moment, processing everything, before I noticed something he'd left behind. His phone, face up on the table. The message was still visible on the screen. "She's a problem. We need to handle this before she becomes a liability." My blood turned to ice as I realized they were talking about me, and I had just married the man who might be planning to eliminate me. I didn't sleep. How could I, knowing that somewhere in this fortress of a house, my new husband was discussing whether I was a liability that needed to be handled. I paced my bedroom until 2 in the morning, the silk nightgown Mrs. Costa had provided whispering against my skin like secrets. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. The hallways were dark, lit only by occasional wall sconces that cast everything in amber and shadow. I moved quietly, bare feet silent on cool marble, following the faint sound of voices coming from somewhere below. Dante's study, I discovered. The door was slightly ajar, golden light spilling through the crack. I knew I shouldn't listen. Knew it was dangerous, possibly suicidal. I pressed myself against the wall and listened anyway. Can't just be a coincidence. A male voice, rough and angry. "Marcus Whitfield vanishes the same morning you marry his fiancée. People are going to ask questions. Let them ask." Dante's voice was cold, controlled. Marcus made his choice. I simply capitalized on an opportunity. An opportunity that could expose us. A different voice, older. "The girl is a civilian, Dante. She doesn't belong in this world. She belongs where I say she belongs, uncle." The steel in Dante's tone made me shiver. "And right now, she belongs with me." "For how long?" the first voice demanded. "Until she learns too much. Until she becomes a security risk. You know the rules, no outsiders. No exceptions." A long silence. Then Dante spoke, and his voice was so quiet, so deadly, that ice flooded my veins. "If anyone touches her, I will burn this entire city to the ground. Is that clear?" "You're letting emotion cloud your judgment," the older voice said. That's dangerous." Dante replied softly, "Is forgetting who gives the orders around here. Serena is my wife, under my protection. Anyone who has a problem with that can discuss it with me personally." The threat hung in the air like a drawn blade. "We're done here," Dante said. "Get out." I barely had time to duck into a shadowed alcove before the study door opened and 2 men emerged, one middle-aged and expensively dressed, the other younger with a jagged scar running down his cheek. Neither looked happy. They passed within feet of my hiding spot without seeing me, their hushed argument fading as they headed toward the front entrance. I should have run back to my room. Should have pretended I'd heard nothing. Instead, I found myself standing in the doorway of Dante's study. He stood at the window, one hand braced against the frame, staring out at the dark gardens. He'd loosened his tie, unbuttoned his collar. In the soft lamplight, he looked younger, more human, more dangerous. "Are you gonna kill me?" I asked quietly. He spun around, his hand moving automatically to something at his waist. A gun, I realized with a jolt, before he saw it was me. Shock flashed across his face, followed quickly by something else. Concern. "How long have you been there?" he demanded. "Long enough." I stepped into the room, letting the door close behind me. "Long enough to hear that I'm a liability, that I don't belong in this world." That your own family wants me gone. Dante's jaw tightened. Serena, are you gonna kill me? I repeated, my voice steady despite the terror coursing through my veins. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, and suddenly he was right there, close enough that I could see the silver flecks in his gray eyes, could feel the heat rolling off his body. No, he said fiercely. Never. Do you understand me? I would raise this entire fucking empire before I let anyone hurt you. Why? I breathed. You don't even know me. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb tracing the line of my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. I know enough, he said softly. I know you stood in that church and chose courage over humiliation. I know you walked down that aisle with your head high even though your world was falling apart. I know you're stronger than you realize. That's not a reason to marry someone. No. His eyes searched mine. But this is. He kissed me, not like he had in the church, claiming and possessive. This was different, slower, deeper. A kiss that tasted like confession and promise and something that felt dangerously close to devotion. I should have pushed him away. Should have demanded answers, demanded safety, demanded my freedom. Instead, I kissed him back. My hands found his chest, feeling the hard muscle beneath expensive fabric, the thundering of his heart that matched my own. He groaned against my mouth, one arm banding around my waist to pull me flush against him, while his other hand tangled in my hair. Serena, he breathed against my lips. God, Serena, you have no idea what you do to me. Then tell me. I pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. Tell me the truth. All of it. He rested his forehead against mine, his breathing ragged. For a long moment, he just held me and I could feel the war raging inside him, between what he wanted and what he knew he should do. Finally, he spoke. The night before your wedding, I received intelligence that Marcus was planning to run. He'd gotten himself into debt with some very dangerous people, gambling debts, poor investments. He was going to disappear and leave you to face the consequences. My blood ran cold. What consequences? His creditors would have come after his assets, including you. Dante's arms tightened around me. I couldn't let that happen. So you what? Decided to marry me instead. I decided to protect you. He pulled back, his eyes fierce. And yes, I used the situation to my advantage. I've wanted you from the moment I saw you 6 months ago at that charity gala. You were wearing a green dress. You laughed at something your friend said, and I knew you were going to be mine. 6 months. He'd been watching me for 6 months. That's insane, I whispered. Yes, he didn't deny it, but it's the truth. I've built my entire life on control, Serena. On planning and strategy and never letting emotion dictate my decisions. And then I saw you, and every rule I've ever lived by became irrelevant. I'm not some prize to be won, Dante. I know. His hand came up to cup my face again. You're so much more than that. You're the one thing in my world that I chose because I wanted to, not because I had to. The one thing that's mine not through power or fear, but because you said yes. I said yes to save face. To avoid humiliation. You said yes because part of you was curious. His thumb brushed across my lower lip. Because part of you wanted to see what would happen if you chose the dangerous path instead of the safe one. He was right, damn him. Some reckless part of me had wanted this. Had wanted him. What happens now? I asked. Now, Dante said softly. You decide, you can walk away, I'll arrange everything, give you money, protection, a new start somewhere far from here. Or, his eyes darkened. Or you stay. You learn what it means to be Mrs. Moretti. You let me show you that some cages are worth the captivity. And if I choose to leave, pain flashed across his face, quickly masked. Then I'll let you go. Even if it kills me. I believed him. And that terrified me more than anything else. Because it meant this dangerous, powerful man, this mafia boss who commanded empires and inspired fear, would break himself apart to give me freedom. And I wasn't sure I wanted it anymore. I need time. I whispered. Take all the time you need, Kara. He pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. I'm not going anywhere. But as I left his study and returned to my lonely bedroom, I realized something chilling. Dante Moretti might not be the only one hunting me, and time was a luxury I might not have. The gunshot woke me at dawn. I bolted upright, heart hammering, the silk sheets tangled around my legs. For a moment I thought I dreamed it, but then I heard shouting, running footsteps, the unmistakable sound of chaos erupting somewhere below. I grabbed the robe from the end of the bed and ran into the hallway. The mansion was in lockdown. Men in dark suits raced past me, weapons drawn, barking orders in Italian. Costa appeared from nowhere, her face pale but composed. Back to your room, Mrs. Moretti, she commanded. Now, what's happening? Where's Dante? Your husband is handling the situation. You need to. Another gunshot. Closer this time. Glass shattered somewhere on the first floor, and I heard Dante's voice roar above the chaos, cold, lethal, absolutely in command. I ran toward the sound. Ms. Moretti. No, Mrs. Costa called after me, but I was already flying down the grand staircase, my bare feet slipping on marble. The scene in the foyer stopped me cold. 4 men lay on the floor, unconscious or dead, I couldn't tell. Blood pooled on the white marble like obscene roses. Windows had been shot out, cold morning air rushing through the gaps. And in the center of it all stood Dante. He held a gun in one hand, his other gripping the collar of a man who was on his knees, bleeding from a wound in his shoulder. Dante's white shirt was spattered with blood, Whether his own or someone else's, I couldn't tell. But it was his face that made my breath catch. Gone was the controlled businessman. Gone was the man who'd kissed me with devastating gentleness just hours ago. This was the Mafia boss, the killer. The monster people whispered about in fear. And his eyes were absolutely empty. "I'm gonna ask you one more time," Dandy said, his voice so quiet it was terrifying. "Who sent you?" The man on his knees spat blood. "Fuck you, Moretti." Dante pressed the gun to the man's temple. "Dante, don't." The words escaped before I could stop them. His head snapped up, and when he saw me standing there in my silk robe, barefoot and trembling, something flickered across his face. Horror, shame, fear. "Get her out of here," he barked to one of his men. No. I didn't know where the courage came from, but I held my ground. "I'm not leaving. Serena, I said I'm not leaving." For a long moment we just stared at each other across a room painted in violence. Then Dante's jaw tightened, and he turned back to the bleeding man at his feet. "You have 3 seconds to tell me who sent you, or I paint these walls with your brain." "The Volkovs," the man gasped. "They know about the shipment, they know about the girl, they're coming for both." Dante's expression went deadly still. "How many?" "Enough." The man laughed, blood bubbling on his lips. "You're already dead, Moretti. You just don't know it yet." Dante pulled the trigger. I flinched at the sound, but I didn't look away. Couldn't look away. The man crumpled to the floor, and Dante stood over him for a moment, breathing hard, before he finally holstered his weapon. Then he looked at me. The emptiness was gone from his eyes, replaced by something raw and agonized. He took a step toward me, reaching out, but stopped when he saw me flinch. "Don't," he said hoarsely. "Don't look at me like that." "Like what? Like I'm a monster? Aren't you?" The question came out as a whisper. Pain lanced across his features. "Yes, but I'm your monster, Serena, and I will do monstrous things to keep you safe." He turned to the man with the scarred face I'd seen leaving his study last night. "Marco, clean this up. Double the guards. No one in or out without my personal authorization." "Boss, we need to move her," Marco said urgently. "The safe house in." "No." Dante's voice was absolute. "She stays with me. Where I can protect her. That makes her a target." "She's already a target." Dante roared, and every man in the room went silent. "The Volkovs know about her. Moving her now would just make her more vulnerable. She stays here, with me." End of discussion. He finally crossed to me, and I saw that he was shaking. This powerful, lethal man was actually trembling. "I need to get you somewhere safe," he said quietly. "Will you come with me?" I should have run. Should have demanded he let me leave. Should have called the police. Should have done anything except nod. But I did. He led me through the mansion to a part of the house I hadn't seen before, a hidden elevator behind a bookshelf in his study, descending to what looked like a bunker. Reinforced walls, multiple monitors showing security feeds, weapons stored in locked cases, a panic room. "What's the Volkov shipment?" I asked as Dante poured himself a drink with shaking hands. "Arms deal. Worth 50 million. He downed the whiskey in one swallow. "I've been negotiating with them for months, but they've been cutting corners, getting sloppy. I pulled out of the deal 3 weeks ago." "And they blame you?" "They blame me for costing them money and reputation." He turned to face me. "And now they know about you. Which means they'll use you to hurt me." The reality of what I'd married into was crashing down around me. This wasn't just dangerous. This was deadly. This was war. "Why did you really marry me, Dante?" I asked. "And don't give me the protection story. There had to be easier ways." He set down his glass and moved toward me slowly, like I was a wild thing that might bolt. When he reached me, he cupped my face in both hands, and I could see every emotion playing across his features: desire, fear, possession, desperation. "Because," he said softly, "I've built my entire life on fear and power and control. I've made myself into something people cross the street to avoid. I've become exactly what this world demanded of me. And then I saw you laughing, alive, so fucking beautiful it hurt to breathe, and I wanted something good for once in my godforsaken life. I'm not good, Dante. I'm just ordinary. You're extraordinary." His thumb brushed away a tear I hadn't realized I'd shed. "And maybe that makes me selfish, dragging you into this darkness. But I can't let you go, Serena. I won't. Even if it gets me killed. I won't." His voice turned to stone. "I will burn down every organization in this city before I let anyone hurt you. You can't promise that. Watch me." He kissed me then, fierce and desperate and tasting like whiskey and violence. And God help me, I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his blood-stained shirt, pulling him closer even though he smelled like gunpowder and death. "I'm scared," I whispered against his mouth. "I know, Kara. I know." He rested his forehead against mine. "But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Trust a mafia boss. Trust a killer. Trust a man who just executed someone in front of me without hesitation." "I don't know," I admitted. "Then let me earn it." He pulled back, his eyes fierce. "Starting now, no more secrets. No more lies. You want to know about my world? I'll show you all of it. The good, the bad, and the bloody. Why? Because you deserve the truth. And because if you're going to choose to stay, you need to know exactly what you're choosing." A phone buzzed. One of the monitors lit up with an incoming call. Marco's face appeared on the screen. "Boss, we've got a situation. The Volkovs just hit one of our warehouses. 3 men down, they left a message. Dante's expression went cold. What message? Marco's face paled. They said to tell you the bride's debt comes due in 7 days. Either you pay or she does. The room went silent. Dante's hand found mine, gripping so tight it almost hurt. Then we have 7 days, he said quietly, to end this. He turned to me, and I saw the wolf behind the man's eyes. Welcome to my world, Mrs. Moretti. I hope you're ready for war. The war room was exactly as brutal as I'd imagined. A table carved from black marble dominated the center, surrounded by hard-faced men who'd killed before and would kill again. Maps covered one wall, the city divided into territories like a battlefield, marked with pins and notes in Italian. Weapons lined another wall, everything from handguns to rifles to things I didn't even have names for. And at the head of the table sat Dante, every inch the king of this dark empire. Serena doesn't need to be here for this, Marco said, eyeing me with obvious disapproval. My wife stays. Dante's tone brooked no argument. She's part of this now. She deserves to understand what's happening. With all due respect, boss, she's a liability. Dante's gun was on the table before Marco could finish the sentence. Finish that thought, he said softly, and you'll be the next casualty in this war. The room went absolutely still. I laid my hand on Dante's arm, feeling the coiled tension beneath his sleeve. It's okay, I said quietly. He's not wrong. He is wrong. Dante didn't take his eyes off Marco. You're not a liability, Serena. You're the reason I'm going to win this. He turned to address the room, his hand finding mine beneath the table and lacing our fingers together. The Volkovs want to make this personal. They think they can use my wife to leverage me into a position of weakness. They're wrong. Serena is my strength, and I will use every resource at my disposal to ensure her safety while we dismantle their organization piece by piece. They have 3 times our manpower. Another man said, Lorenzo, Dante's cousin, and they're already embedded in the port operations. We move against them, we risk losing our shipping routes. Then we cut them off at the source. Dante leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with deadly strategy. Marco, I want eyes on every Volkov operation in the city. Find their weak points. Lorenzo, reach out to the families who haven't yet chosen a side. Offer them favorable terms if they stand with us, Dow. And Viktor Volkov himself. Marco asked. Dante's smile was terrifying. Leave him to me. The meeting lasted 3 hours. I watched Dante transform from the man who'd kissed me with devastating tenderness into something else entirely. A general commanding his army, a predator stalking prey, a king defending his territory. He was magnificent, and absolutely terrifying. When the last man filed out, Dante slumped back in his chair, exhaustion finally showing on his face. You're good at this, I said quietly. At war. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I was raised for it. My father started training me when I was 8 years old. By the time I was 15, I'd killed my first man. The casual way he said it made my stomach turn. Does it ever bother you? I asked. The killing. Every single time. He looked at me then, and I saw the weight of it in his eyes. I don't sleep well, Serena. Haven't in years. Because every time I close my eyes I see their faces. Every man I've killed. Every order I've given that ended in blood. Then why do it? Because if I don't, someone else will. Someone worse. Someone who won't have any conscience about the innocent people caught in the crossfire. He stood, moving to the window. I'm not a good man. But I try to be better than the alternatives. I joined him at the window, looking out at the city spread below us like a game board. Somewhere out there, people were hunting me. People who wanted to use me to hurt this complicated, dangerous man I'd married. What's the bride's debt? I asked. The message the Volkov sent. Dante's jaw tightened. It's a tradition. In the old country, when a man married, his family would offer a dowry to prove his worth. If he couldn't pay, the bride would be considered. He trailed off. Property. I finished. They're saying I'm property because you didn't pay a dowry. It's archaic, insulting, and completely fucking unacceptable. He turned to me, his eyes fierce. You're not property, Serena. Not theirs, not anyone's, Tom? But I am yours, I said quietly. You said so yourself. That's different? Is it? He pulled me against him suddenly, one hand tangling in my hair, the other splayed across the small of my back. Yes, he said fiercely. Because I don't own you. I protect you. I cherish you. I would die for you. That's not ownership. That's... He stopped himself, but I saw it in his eyes. Love. This dangerous, lethal man was falling in love with me. Maybe already had. Dante. I whispered, but I didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to process the way my heart was racing. The way my body fit against his like we'd been made for this. He kissed me instead of waiting for words. Deep and slow and tasting like promises neither of us should make. I need to show you something, he said against my lips. Something I've never shown anyone. He led me through the mansion to his private quarters, rooms I hadn't been allowed in before. His bedroom was surprisingly simple. No ostentatious luxury, just clean lines and dark colors. But it was the wall that made me stop. Photographs, dozens of them, all of me. At the charity gala where he'd first seen me, laughing with friends, walking to work with coffee in hand. At the farmer's market buying flowers, reading in the park, living my ordinary life, completely unaware I was being watched. I couldn't find words for the mix of emotions churning through me. Violation, fascination, fear, desire, obsession. Dante finished quietly. I told you I've wanted you for 6 months. This is proof. I've been watching you, learning you, falling for you long before you ever knew I existed. That's insane. Yes. He moved behind me, his chest against my back, his arms coming around my waist. But it's the truth. Every decision I've made for the past 6 months has been leading to this moment. To you in my house, wearing my ring, carrying my name. What if I'd said no in that church? His arms tightened. Then I would have found another way. Because I meant what I said, Serena. You're mine. The universe decided that long before either of us had a choice. I should have been terrified. Should have been running for the door. Instead, I turned in his arms and kissed him. Not gently, not carefully. I kissed him like I was drowning and he was air, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer, needing more. He groaned against my mouth, lifting me easily, my legs wrapping around his waist as he walked us toward the bed. Tell me to stop, he breathed against my neck. Tell me this is too fast, too much, and I'll stop. Don't stop, I whispered. His eyes blazed. Serena. A phone rang, the emergency line I'd learned, the one that only rang when everything was going to hell. Dante cursed viciously, setting me down and grabbing the phone. What? Whatever he heard made his face go white. When? He demanded. How many? Fuck. Secure the perimeter. I'm on my way. He turned to me and I saw fear in his eyes for the first time. What's wrong? The Volkovs hit your mother's house, he said quietly. They took your sister. The world tilted. Lily? I couldn't breathe. They took Lily. I'm sorry, Kara. But we're gonna get her back. I promise you. How long do we have? His silence was answer enough. The 7-day deadline wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone I loved, and the choice I had to make could destroy us all. I'd never seen Dante move so fast. Within 10 minutes, the mansion was a hive of controlled chaos. Men armed to the teeth gathered in the foyer. SUVs pulled up outside. Marco coordinated teams through a headset while Lorenzo laid out tactical maps on the dining room table. And Dante stood in the center of it all, a general preparing for war. Serena, you need to stay here, he said, gripping my shoulders. The safe room, no. My voice was steel. That's my sister they have. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not, it's too dangerous. I don't care. I grabbed his jacket, forcing him to look at me. Lily is 23 years old, Dante. She works at a bookstore and volunteers at the animal shelter, and has never hurt anyone in her entire life. They took her because of me. Because I married you. I'm not hiding in a bunker while she's terrified and alone. Something shifted in his expression. Respect maybe. Or recognition of the same stubbornness he carried. If you come, he said quietly, you follow my orders exactly. No arguments, no hesitation. Your safety is the only thing that matters to me. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. God, you're magnificent, he breathed. Then louder, to Marco, get her a vest. And a weapon. Boss, that's... Did I stutter? 10 minutes later, I sat in the back of an armored SUV, wearing a bulletproof vest that was too big and holding a handgun that felt like a foreign object in my hands. Dante sat beside me, his own weapon resting casually on his thigh, his free hand gripping mine so tight I could feel my pulse against his palm. The Volkos sent a location. Marco said from the front seat, reading from his phone. Abandoned warehouse on the East Docks. They want you to come alone. Dante's voice was ice. How many men do we have in position? 30. Rooftops, alleys, inside when possible. The building has 3 entrances. If this goes south, I won't. Dante's confidence was absolute. I'm getting the girl back. I'm ending this. And I'm making damn sure Viktor Volkov knows what happens when you touch what's mine. The warehouse loomed against the night sky like a tomb. We parked 2 blocks away, and Dante's men moved like shadows, taking positions with military precision. I watched them disappear into the darkness and felt the first real spike of terror. This was real. This was happening. My baby sister was in that building with monsters. Serena. Dante turned to me, his hands framing my face. Listen to me very carefully. I'm going in first. Alone like they demanded. Marco will be watching through scopes, ready to extract you if anything goes wrong. But I need you to promise me something. What? If this goes badly, if Victor gets the upper hand, you run. You don't look back, you don't try to be a hero, you just run and let Marco get you to safety. Promise me, Dante? Promise me, Serena. I promise, I whispered, even though we both knew I was lying. He kissed me then. Not gentle, not careful. A kiss that tasted like goodbye and desperation and love he hadn't said aloud. Stay safe, Karamaya. He breathed against my lips. I need you to stay safe. Then he was gone, walking toward the warehouse with his hands raised, his gun holstered, looking like a man surrendering. I knew better. Dante Moretti never surrendered. Marco handed me an earpiece. You'll be able to hear everything, he said quietly. But don't make a sound. If they detect the signal, I understand. Through the earpiece, I heard Dante's footsteps echoing in what sounded like a vast, empty space. Then voices. Moretti. So good of you to join us. A man's voice heavily accented. Viktor Volkov. Where's the girl? Dante's voice was controlled, but I could hear the rage simmering beneath. Safe. For now. Whether she stays that way depends entirely on you. What do you want? What I've always wanted. Respect. Compensation for the deal you destroyed. And an understanding that you don't fuck with the Volkov family without consequences. I'm here, aren't I? A laugh. Yes. But you didn't come alone. Did you? I count 32 of your men surrounding this building. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Silence. Then Dante, let the girl go, Victor. This is between you and me. Oh, I will. After we discuss terms. A pause. Your wife is quite beautiful. I saw her at the wedding. Shame about the groom running off like that. Almost like someone helped him make that decision. My blood turned to ice. What are you implying? Dante's voice was deadly quiet. I'm saying Marcus Whitfield didn't just develop cold feet, Moretti. Someone put the fear of God into him. Someone with resources and motivation. Someone who wanted his bride for himself. Oh God, you're delusional. Am I? Because I have recordings of very interesting conversations. Threats made, money transferred, all traceable back to your organization. Victor's voice hardened. You didn't save her from humiliation, Dante. You created it. You orchestrated the whole thing so you could swoop in and play hero. That's a lie. I whispered, but Marco shot me a warning look. Through the earpiece, I heard Dante breathing hard. Where did you get those recordings? He demanded. Does it matter? What matters is that your beautiful wife doesn't know the truth about her white knight, does she? She doesn't know you paid her fiancé $250,000 to disappear. She doesn't know you've been manipulating her life for months, moving pieces on a chessboard until she had nowhere else to turn but into your arms. No, that couldn't be true. Victor, bring her in, Victor called out. Let's ask the lady herself what she thinks. Doors opened. Footsteps. Then Lily's voice, terrified and shaking. Serena. Serena, what's happening? Something inside me snapped. I was out of the SUV before Marco could stop me, running toward the warehouse, the earpiece falling from my ear, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. I burst through the doors into a cavernous space lit by harsh fluorescent lights, and saw everything. Dante stood in the center, hands still raised, surrounded by at least a dozen armed men. Lily was off to the side, held by a man twice her size, her face streaked with tears. And Viktor Volkov, tall, graying, impeccably dressed, stood watching it all with a smile that made my skin crawl. Ah, he said pleasantly. Mrs. Moretti.
So good of you to join us, Da. Serena, get out of here!
Dante roared, but I ignored him. Let my sister go, I said, my voice shaking but clear. Whatever this is about, she's innocent. Innocent. Victor laughed. Like you. Tell me, did your husband mention how he orchestrated your wedding day disaster? How he paid Marcus to run so you'd have no choice but to turn to him? I looked at Dante. Saw the truth written across his face before he could hide it. Saw guilt, shame, desperate, agonized love. Serena, I can explain. Did you? I asked quietly. Did you pay Marcus to leave me? A heartbeat. 2. Yes. The world collapsed. But it wasn't. It's not what you think. I was protecting you. Marcus had debts, dangerous debts, and they would have come for you. I offered him a way out that kept you safe. Be humiliating me. By orchestrating the worst moment of my life so you could swoop in and play savior.
Be giving you a choice?
Dante's voice cracked. You could have said no, Serena. In that church, you could have walked away. But you didn't. You chose me? I chose possibility. You chose courage. You chose? He stopped, his eyes blazing.
You chose us, Da. There is no us.
I said and watched him flinch like I'd shot him. There's just you and your manipulations and your obsession. How touching. Victor drawled. But we're wasting time. Here's what's gonna happen, Moretti. You're gonna transfer ownership of your port operations to me. You're gonna publicly acknowledge Volkov's supremacy in this city. And in exchange, I'll let both girls walk out of here alive. And if I refuse? Victor's gun appeared, pressed against Lily's temple. My sister sobbed. Then I start with the innocent one. Victor said pleasantly. And work my way up to your precious bride. Dante's eyes met mine across the warehouse. I saw everything in that look. Love, desperation, apology, surrender. Fine, he said quietly. You win, Victor. I'll give you whatever you want. Just let them go. Dante. No. Marco's voice crackled through communications. But Dante was already moving, pulling out his phone, beginning the transfers that would cost him everything. For me, for my sister. For a woman who'd just told him there was no s. And in that moment, watching him sacrifice his empire for my safety, I realized something that changed everything. I loved him. God help me. I loved this dangerous, manipulative, broken man who'd orchestrated my wedding day disaster but would burn down his entire world to keep me safe. Wait, I said. Everyone turned to look at me. I walked forward, past Dante's shocked expression, until I stood directly in front of Viktor Volkov. You want to destroy him? I asked quietly. Then you'll have to go through me first. And I pulled the trigger. I'd never shot anyone before. The recoil knocked me back a step. My ears ringing from the blast, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the gun. Viktor Volkov staggered backward, clutching his shoulder where my bullet had torn through expensive fabric and flesh. For a heartbeat, the entire warehouse held its breath, then all hell broke loose. Dante's men poured through every entrance, weapons blazing. Victor's soldiers returned fire, glass shattered, metal pinged. Someone screamed, maybe Lily, maybe me. I couldn't tell through the roaring in my ears. Strong arms grabbed me, yanking me down behind a concrete pillar as bullets whined overhead. What the fuck were you thinking? Dante snarled, his body covering mine, shielding me from the chaos. You could have been killed. He was going to kill Lily. I had it under control. You were giving up everything. He grabbed my face, forcing me to look at him. I would give up everything for you, Serena. Don't you understand that? Shouting in Italian and Russian. The acrid smell of gunpowder. Dante's radio crackled. Boss, we've got them pinned. East exit is clear if you move now. Get the sister. Dante barked. Marco, cover fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1. He hauled me to my feet and we ran, staying low, Dante's body always between me and danger. I saw Marco across the warehouse dragging Lily toward the exit. Saw Lorenzo take a bullet to the leg and keep fighting. Saw men falling on both sides. This was war. Real war. And I'd started it by pulling that trigger. We burst through the exit into cold night air, and Dante practically threw me into the waiting SUV. Lily tumbled in seconds later, sobbing and shaking, and then we were moving, tires squealing, leaving the gunfight behind. Is she hurt? Dante demanded, his hands already on me, checking for injuries. I'm fine. Lily, bruised but alive. Marco reported from the front seat. What the hell were you thinking, Mrs. Moretti? I was thinking I was tired of being the victim. I pulled away from Dante's searching hands. I was tired of being the prize you all fight over, so I made a choice. You almost got yourself killed, Dante roared. So did you, I shot back. You were literally signing away your empire, because your life is worth more than any empire. The SUV went silent except for Lily's soft crying. I looked at my hands, they were still shaking blood. Victor's blood spattered across my knuckles. I shot someone. I whisper, Les. Dante's voice softened. You did. Is he alive? Unfortunately. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around my shoulders. You winged him. Painful but not fatal. Though I'm sure he wishes you'd killed him, because what I'm gonna do to him will be much worse. I looked up sharply. Dante? He threatened you, took your sister, tried to use you as leverage against me. His eyes were absolutely cold. He signed his own death warrant the moment he touched what's mine. I'm not yours, aren't you? The question hung between us, loaded with everything we hadn't said. I need to take Lily home, I said instead. To our mother. She's probably terrified. Already handled. I sent men to secure your mother's house hours ago. She's safe. Of course he had. Because despite everything, the lies, the manipulation, the obsession, Dante took care of what mattered to me, even when I hated him for it. Back at the mansion, Mrs. Costa swept Lily away to a guest room, murmuring soothing words in Italian. The medic checked her over while I stood in the doorway, unable to stop shaking. She'll be okay, Dante said quietly behind me. Scared but physically fine. We'll have counselors available, protection, whatever she needs. Why? I turned to face him. Why do you care what happens to my sister? Because she's your sister. He said it like it was obvious. Because she matters to you, which means she matters to me. That's how this works, Serena. No, that's how obsession works. That's how possession works. I stepped closer, anger finally overriding fear. You paid my fiancé to abandon me. You orchestrated my humiliation. You've been watching me, following me, planning this for 6 months. That's not love, Dante. That's desperation. He finished quietly. That's desperation, Serena. I saw you and I knew you were going to change everything. I knew if I let you marry Marcus, if I let you disappear into that safe, boring life, I would regret it for the rest of my existence. So yes, I manipulated circumstances. Yes, I lied by omission. Yes, I orchestrated events to put you in a position where choosing me was the most logical option. That's sick. It's survival. He moved closer, and I saw the raw emotion in his eyes. I've spent my entire life in a world where showing weakness gets you killed. Where love is a liability. Where caring about someone gives your enemies ammunition. And then you walked into my world, so bright, so alive, so fucking beautiful, and I realized I didn't care about the risk anymore. I wanted you, consequences be damned. You don't get to make that choice for me. I know. His control cracked. I know that, Serena. I know I should have told you the truth from the beginning. I know I should have given you all the information and let you decide. But I was terrified that if you knew, you'd run. And I can't lose you. You never had me to lose. Don't I? He was right in front of me now, close enough that I could feel his heat, could see the silver flecks in his gray eyes. Then why did you pull that trigger tonight? Why did you step between me and Victor when you could have let him destroy me? Why did you kiss me like your life depended on it every time I touched you? Because I'm an idiot, I whispered. Because you feel it too, he countered. This thing between us. This magnetic, terrifying, all-consuming thing that doesn't care about logic or safety or good sense. That's not love. He kissed me, hard and desperate and tasting like gunpowder and fear and something that felt dangerously close to goodbye. I should have pushed him away. Should have maintained my anger, my righteous fury at his betrayal. Instead, I kissed him back, my hands fisted in his blood-stained shirt, pulling him closer, kneading him closer, and he groaned against my mouth like I was killing him and saving him all at once. I'm so sorry. He breathed between kisses. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I manipulated you. I'm sorry I'm not the man you deserve. Then be better, I demanded. If you want me, if you really want this, then no more secrets. No more lies. No more treating me like a prize to be won instead of a person to be partnered with. Yes, he kissed my forehead, my cheeks, my lips. Yes, anything, everything. Just don't leave me, Serena. I can survive bullets and betrayal and war, but I cannot survive losing you. You're an idiot. I whispered. I'm your idiot, that's not. But I couldn't finish because he was kissing me again, and God help me, I was drowning in it. A throat cleared behind us. We broke apart to find Marco standing there looking uncomfortable. Boss, we have a situation. Victor's escaped from the hospital. His men hit 3 of our locations in the last hour. They're escalating. Dante's entire demeanor changed. The vulnerable man disappearing behind the Mafia boss once more. How many casualties? 7 wounded, 2 dead. They're not playing anymore. Neither am I. Dante turned to me. I need to handle this. Marco will keep you and Lily safe here. No more keeping me in the dark. I interrupted. You said no more secrets. So tell me, what's the plan? He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. We end this tonight. We hit them where it hurts. Their money, their supply lines, their leadership. And then I have a conversation with Viktor Volkov that he won't survive. That's murder. That's war. His eyes were cold. And he drew first blood when he took your sister. I should have been horrified. Should have been running for the door. Instead, I found myself asking, what do you need me to do? Dante's smile was sharp enough to cut. Trust me, cara mia. And maybe say a prayer for Victor's soul. I don't pray for the damned, then pray for me, he whispered. Because I'm about to become something even darker than what I already am. And I need to know you'll still be here when the smoke clears. I cupped his face, feeling the stubble rough against my palms. I'll be here, I promised. But when this is over, we're having a very long conversation about boundaries and consent and how relationships actually work. Despite everything, he laughed. I look forward to it, Mrs. Moretti. And as he left to wage war, I realized I meant it. I would be here. For better or worse, I'd chosen this dangerous, broken, magnificent man. Now I just had to survive long enough to see what came next. The war lasted 3 days. 3 days of violence and strategy, and Dante disappearing for hours, returning with blood on his hands and exhaustion in his eyes. 3 days of Marco coordinating attacks while I sat with Lily, trying to explain a world I barely understood myself. 3 days of wondering if the man I'd married would come back whole, or if this darkness would consume him entirely. On the 4th morning it ended. I woke to silence, the kind that settles after storms, heavy and waiting. Dante stood at my bedroom window, still wearing yesterday's clothes, dried blood on his collar. It's over, he said without turning. Victor. Dead, along with most of his command structure. The rest surrendered or fled the city. The Volkov family is finished. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt hollow. How many died? I asked quietly. Too many. He finally turned to face me, and I saw the weight of it in his eyes. On both sides, good men who were just following orders. Loyal soldiers who believed they were protecting their families. But you won. Did I? He laughed bitterly. I declared war over a woman I manipulated into marrying me. I burned down organizations, ended lives, spilled blood across the city, and for what? To prove I could protect you, to keep what I'd taken? Dante? I'm a monster, Serena. He crossed to me, kneeling beside the bed so we were eye level. I've always known it, but seeing your face when you learned the truth about Marcus, seeing you realize what I'm capable of, that's when it became real. I reached out, touching his face, feeling the stubble and the dried blood and the humanity beneath the killer. You're not a monster, I said quietly. Monsters don't feel guilt. They don't question their choices or lose sleep over casualties. You're just human. Flawed and damaged and trying your best in a world that demands terrible things. That's too generous. It's honest. I leaned forward, pressing my forehead to his. I'm angry at you, Dante. Furious about the lies and the manipulation. But I also understand why you did it. You're a man who's spent his whole life controlling outcomes to survive. Letting go, trusting fate. That terrifies you more than any enemy ever could. You terrify me, he admitted. The depth of what I feel for you, it's the most dangerous thing I've ever experienced. Good. I pulled back to meet his eyes. Because you terrify me too. This pull between us, this magnetic, all-consuming thing, it's not safe or sane or smart. But it's real. And maybe that's enough. Serena. I kissed him. Not gentle this time. Not tentative. I kissed him like I was claiming him, marking him as mine the way he'd marked me his from the moment he slipped that ring on my finger. He groaned against my mouth, his hands coming up to tangle in my hair, pulling me closer until there was no space between us. I love you, he breathed against my lips. God help me, I love you so much it's killing me. Then live. I whispered back, stop trying to control everything and just live. With me, for me? I don't know how. Then learn. I stood, pulling him up with me, starting now. No more war room, no more blood feuds. No more treating me like something fragile that needs protection. But you do need protection. Then teach me to protect myself. I gestured to the gun still sitting on my nightstand, the one I'd used to shoot Victor. You've built this empire. Dante. Show me how it works, make me your partner instead of your prize. Something shifted in his expression. Hope, maybe. Or recognition of something he'd wanted but been too afraid to ask for. You want in? He asked quietly. You want to know what I really do? Who I really am? All of it, the legitimate businesses and the ones that exist in shadows. All of it. That's dangerous, Kara. Once you know, you cannot know. Once you're part of this world, there's no going back to normal. Normal died the day I married you. I moved closer, letting him feel my certainty. I'm all in, Dante. But on my terms, as your equal, not your possession. His eyes darkened with something that looked like reverence. Equal, he repeated. I don't know if I'm capable of that. Try. For me. He pulled me against him, his hands spanning my waist, his mouth finding the sensitive spot below my ear that made me shiver. You're asking me to rewrite every rule I've ever lived by. He murmured against my skin. I'm asking you to trust me. The way you're asking me to trust you. I do trust you, more than anyone. Then prove it. I felt him smile against my neck. How? Show me everything. The real empire. The real Dante Moretti. And let me decide if I can love all of it. He pulled back to search my face, and I saw vulnerability there that I'd never seen before. Raw and honest and completely unguarded. What if you decide you can't? He asked softly. Then we figure it out together. But hiding won't work anymore, Dante. I've seen too much. Been through too much. If we're gonna make this work, this insane, dangerous, beautiful thing between us, it has to be built on truth. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he nodded. Okay, he said. I'll show you everything. But not today. His smile turned wicked. Because today, I'm gonna make love to my wife. Properly. Without war or violence or the world trying to tear us apart. Heat flooded through me. Dante. Unless you'd rather continue the tour of my criminal empire. His hand slid lower, pulling me flush against him. We could go over shipping manifests. Discuss territory agreements. Review financial. I kissed him to shut him up. And this time, when he backed me toward the bed, when his hands found skin beneath silk, when he worshipped every inch of me like I was something sacred, I let him. Because love, I'd learned, wasn't always safe or sane or simple. Sometimes it was dangerous and consuming and born from ashes. Sometimes it was a mafia boss who'd orchestrated your greatest humiliation to give you the greatest love of your life. Sometimes it was choosing the darkness because the man standing in it made you brave enough to face anything. I love you. I whispered as he moved above me, inside me, making promises with his body that his words had struggled to convey. I love you, he echoed, and I heard the wonder in his voice. My fierce, beautiful, dangerous wife. I will spend every day of my life earning your trust. Just love me? I breathed. That's all I need. I can do that. His lips found mine. I can definitely do that. And as pleasure crashed over us in waves, as we moved together like we'd been made for this moment, I realized something profound. I'd walked into a church expecting one future and emerged with something infinitely more complicated. But complicated didn't mean wrong, and dangerous didn't mean doomed. It just meant we'd have to fight for it, together. 6 months later, I stood in Dante's office, our office, reviewing shipment logs with Marco while my husband negotiated with distributors in Milan via video conference. The transformation hadn't been easy. Learning the business, both legitimate and otherwise, had been like drinking from a fire hose. Supply chains and territory agreements, legitimate import companies that provided cover for less legal operations, the delicate dance of maintaining power while avoiding attention from law enforcement. But I'd learned, adapted, became something I'd never imagined. On that wedding day when my world fell apart, I became Mrs. Moretti. Partner, strategist, equal. Your wife makes a compelling argument. The man on the screen said to Dante, though his eyes were on me. Perhaps we should defer to her judgment on the shipping routes. Dante's smile was proud. My wife's judgment is impeccable. We'll move forward with her plan. After the call ended, Marco excused himself with a knowing look, leaving us alone in the sunlit office. You were magnificent, Dante said, pulling me into his arms. Did you see Catalano's face when you quoted his own logistics report back to him? He underestimated me. I leaned into his warmth. They all do. Not anymore. His hand spanned my waist possessively. Words gotten around. Dante Moretti's wife is not to be trifled with. Good. We'd found our rhythm. A partnership built on honesty now, not manipulation. Dante still had moments of controlling overprotectiveness, but he was learning. Learning to ask instead of command. Learning to trust me with the dangerous parts of his world instead of hiding me from them. And I was learning too. Learning that loving a complicated man meant accepting all his pieces. The tender and the lethal. The vulnerable and the vicious. I have something for you, he said, pulling a small box from his desk drawer. Dante, you know I don't need. Just open it. Inside was a key. Simple silver, unremarkable. That's the key to the East warehouse, he explained. The one we just acquired. I was thinking. It's time to expand the legitimate side of the business. Art importing. High-end antiques. You mentioned wanting to do something meaningful with the family resources. My breath caught. You're giving me a warehouse. I'm giving you freedom to build something that's yours. Not ours, not mine, yours. Something legal and meaningful and completely under your control. His eyes were soft. I know this life isn't what you chose, Serena. I know you gave up a lot when you married me. This is my way of giving something back. Tears pricked my eyes. You're giving me independence. I'm giving you a choice. He cupped my face gently. Stay involved in my world as much or as little as you want. Build your own empire, both. Neither. Whatever makes you happy, I'll support it. That's actually very healthy communication, Mr. Moretti. I've been reading those relationship books you left on my nightstand. I laughed through my tears. You actually read them? Every word. He kissed me softly. I told you I'd learn to be better, for you. A knock interrupted us. Mrs. Costa appeared in the doorway looking apologetic. "I'm sorry to intrude, but you have visitors." "Your mother and sister." I tensed slightly. My family and I were still rebuilding our relationship. The trauma of Lily's kidnapping had taken time to heal, and my mother struggled to accept the dangerous world I'd chosen to inhabit. But we were trying. "Show them to the garden room," I told Mrs. Costa. "We'll be right there." Dante's hand found mine as we walked through the mansion. "Are you nervous?" "Always with them. They still look at me like I'm a stranger sometimes." "Give them time. They're learning who you've become. That takes adjustment." The garden room was filled with afternoon light, and my mother stood by the windows while Lily perched on a sofa, looking more relaxed than she had in months. "Mom," I hugged her carefully. "Lily, this is a surprise. A good one, I hope," my mother said, her eyes moving between Dante and me with something that might have been acceptance. "We wanted to talk to you. Both of you." We sat, and I felt Dante's hand rest on my lower back, supportive but not controlling. "I owe you an apology, Mr. Moretti," my mother began. "I've been harsh in my judgment. I blamed you for changing Serena, for dragging her into your world. But watching you together these past months, seeing how you look at her, how you trust her." "He gave me a warehouse, Mom," I interjected with a smile. "He gave you independence," Lily corrected, "which is somehow more romantic coming from a guy who literally owns half the city." My mother actually smiled. "Your sister has been explaining the business to me. The legitimate parts, at least. I'm beginning to understand that you're not just surviving in this world, Serena, you're thriving." "I am," I said honestly. "It's not the life I imagined, but it's mine, and I chose it. Then that's all that matters." She stood, moving to where Dante and I sat. "Take care of my daughter, Mr. Moretti. She's stronger than she knows, but she still deserves someone who will cherish that strength." "Every day of my life, Mrs. Castellano," Dante promised. "I swear it." After they left, Dante pulled me into his study and kissed me thoroughly. "Thank you," he murmured against my lips. "For what?" "For giving me a chance, for seeing past the monster to the man beneath, for choosing this life even when it terrified you." "I chose you. Her life came with it, but I chose you, Dante." His eyes blazed with emotion. "I don't deserve you, probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." I smiled. "For better or worse, remember." "I remember everything about that day, the way you looked in that dress, the courage in your eyes when you said I do, the moment I knew my entire life had just changed forever. Mine too." I kissed him softly. "Best decision I ever made, marrying a stranger who turned out to be my soulmate, even though I orchestrated the entire thing. Especially because of that." I pulled back to meet his eyes. "You saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. You gave me a chance to be brave and dangerous and powerful. You changed my life, Dante, but I changed yours too. You saved it," he said fiercely. "I was drowning in this darkness, becoming the monster everyone feared. And then you stepped into my world and reminded me what it felt like to be human. So we saved each other." We did. Outside, the sun set over the city, our city now, in a way. Dante's empire built on power and fear, but also on loyalty and protection and the fierce love we'd built from ashes. "What do you think happens next?" I asked, watching the lights begin to twinkle across the skyline. "More challenges, more enemies, more complications." He pulled me against his chest. "But also more of this. More mornings waking up beside you. More afternoons building our empire together. More nights where it's just us against the world." "Sounds perfect." "It won't be easy. Nothing worth having ever is." I turned in his arms. "But I'm not afraid anymore, Dante. Not of your world, not of our future, not of anything. Because I know you'll face it all with me. Always," he promised. "Every battle, every triumph, every quiet moment in between. You're my partner, Serena, my equal, my love. And I will spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice that day in the church. You already have." I kissed him as the sun disappeared below the horizon. Every single day since. And somewhere in the darkness that had become our home, I heard the echo of church bells, a reminder of where we'd begun. A bride abandoned. A stranger who stepped forward. A vow exchanged in desperation that became the truest thing either of us had ever known. It wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined. It was better, darker, more dangerous, infinitely more real, and absolutely, completely, perfectly ours. Some love stories begin with white dresses and promises made in sunshine. Ours began in shadows and was forged in fire. But it was real, and it was ours, forever.